What is going on, everyone? We are back with another HellaDepraved Shocktober 2022 Top 50 Most Evil Songs All Time thing.
Alright.
I'm Depraved.
I'm Hellcat.
And together we are
HellaDepraved.
Alright, we're on to number 28 on the list.
And I'm shocked that they made the list.
I'll be interested to see why.
Yeah, I've listened to Alkaline Trio since the 90s. My favorite song of theirs is Burn, which was on the second Underworld soundtrack. And we saw them.
We didn't see them.
Well, yeah.
We got to hear them. We went to the Chicago concert fest. Riot Fest.
They played right before My Chemical Romance.
Yeah.
And they were fantastic.
We knew we were going to be standing for a while with My Chemical Romance, so we sat in the VIP section until My Chemical Romance was on. But we got to hear him, which was cool.
Yeah. Well, and we saw the last two songs of their set standing in front of them too. But yeah.
Right.
Very good.
Super excited for this though. So, basically the way we're going to do this, how we've done everything else, we're going to listen to the song, we're going to analyze the lyrics as the lyrics goes, and then at the end of it, we will read the About section on Genius, which it doesn't look like there is one. And then we will read why it got put on the list by Kerrang.
Right.
Kerrang's the ones we're getting the list from.
Right.
They've been wrong about 75% of the time.
Little more.
But yeah. So we're excited to check this out. So we're going to react to this if you guys have already seen it. If not, click the link in the description below. Hop on over to All Things Coming Back. No because we're commentary, reaction, breakdown, comedy channel. And what that means, we will pause for any and or all of the above. It is time to slash it up and break it down. This is Alkaline Trio with This Could Be Love.
All right.
I've got a book of matches, I've got a can of kerosene, I got some bad ideas involving you and me. I don't blame you for walking away. I touched myself at thoughts of flames. I sat the bed, I laid there in it, thinking of you, wide awake for days.
This is a weird song.
Yes and no. I mean, like, please don't.
I feel like
your bed, but
this is the rock version of Love the Way You Lie.
That's exactly what I was just gonna say. That's exactly what I was
I beat you
say.
for once.
Yes, you did. It's basically a combustible relationship where she did leave, and now he's, on the edge. Madness is stirred, if it were not already.
All right. So the first four
it's
lines.
Annotated. Got it.
Right. The first four lines, I've got a book of matches, I've got a can of kerosene, I've got some bad ideas involving you and me. They conjure the suggestion that the singer is planning some kind of plot involving arson to harm the female subject of the song. It does not, however, elaborate yet on what his bad ideas are.
Really? Okay. I feel like the arson might be one of them.
Right.
I also think that what they're missing out on there is also that it's a double, because obviously their relationship was combustible too.
Right. The next four lines are, I don't blame you for walking away. I touched myself at thoughts of flames. I shat the bed. I laid there in it, thinking of you, wide awake for days. This section of the song suggests that he was rejected out of hand by the object of his affections. He doesn't blame her and lists several reasons why he could be considered a disgusting human being, not worthy of her attention. It also casts light on how her lack of attention to him drove him to despair.
Yeah, or it could just be like the malaise that came after she broke up with him. I mean, like,
this definitely feels more like a breakup thing than being rejected.
Yeah, definitely. But so when they say several disgusting things that may be the reason that they broke up, I don't think that's right, because I take I shat the bed and laid there in it as depression, because he's talking about thinking of you, wide awake for days, right?
Right.
So I don't think that that's part of the reason that she walked away.
Right.
I would think that yeah, sure, he has that depression in him in the like over dramatic sense of it, but I think that annotation is just slightly off. Like, I'm not disagreeing with it, but I don't think that was interpreted correctly.
Right. So even if we go with the idea that it's not a breakup song, it's a rejection thing.
Right.
Um.
Well, I mean, like, so yes, it's both, but it's not just when they say out of hand rejection. I would interpret that as these people have never been in a relationship. But
Right.
to me, the song sounds like they've been in a relationship.
Well, even if they haven't, shut up. Even if they haven't, I feel like it's annotated incorrectly still.
Right.
Because it says it also casts light he doesn't blame her and lists several reasons why he could be considered a disgusting human being. It's not what he did. He's not. When he says, I shat the bed and laid there in it, it's not literal.
Right.
The term shit the bed means you fucked up.
Right. And then he wallowed in it.
Yeah, and then and that was exactly what I was going to go with. And then he wallowed in it.
And then he sat there thinking on his mistakes, and that gave him insomnia.
Right.
But here's the thing. Even if it were perfectly literal, it's after the fact. It's after she rejected him. So
right.
That's not a list of his,
shortcomings.
Right.
All right.
Wide awake for days, and I found you tongue-tied in my twisted little brain. You couldn't crack a smile. I didn't catch your name. I don't blame you for walking away. I'd do the same if I saw me. I swear it's not contagious, and for short steps we can erase this step one.
All
right. So it is somebody he hasn't been dating.
Possible.
He doesn't know her name.
Yeah, but that's in his brain, though. I don't know.
Well, he's describing what that first encounter would be like.
He was tongue-tied.
Right? Not him. He's describing what that first encounter would be like. A lot of us, especially when we're younger, I mean, we do this now, where we imagine how conversations are going to go.
Right.
Right? Well, he's thinking about how their first interaction together is going to be. And in his mind, he sees her as somebody that might like him enough that she can't.
When I read that, I found you tongue-tied in my twisted little brain. He was tongue-tied because he was twisted in his brain. Like, the words twisted in his brain. Does that make sense? I think either interpretation could work, but I think that it should have been, I found you with a comma, if you're going to read it. I don't think she was the one that was tongue-tied. She couldn't crack a smile, and because he couldn't talk to her, like, she couldn't crack a smile because he was tongue-tied. And therefore, no names were exchanged.
All right. Annotation says, he knows very little about the woman he desires, and despite being able to envisage how she looks, this is not sufficient, as he cannot imagine her speaking. He does not know what her smile is like or even her name, so his mental imagery of her is rather limited and does not provide him any comfort.
I don't know, because that to me sounds like this is somebody that he's never even met, the way that they're interpreting it.
Right.
Like, she's just a fantasy, because even if you've never talked to the object of your desire, normally that person has a face and persona because you've been watching them for a while. You know what I mean?
Right. The next 4 lines, I don't blame you for walking away. I'd do the same if I saw me. I swear it's not contagious. In 4 short steps, we can erase this. The singer completely understands why he was rejected. The tone of the song suggests that their interaction was nothing to the woman but meant a great deal to the man. He also states that he is not contagious, which means that she won't suffer the same problems that he does just by associating with him. So he resolves to offer a solution that will solve his problem of being without the one he loves or is obsessed with so desperately.
It sounds like, to me, he just views himself as a social outcast.
Right.
And unfortunately has a very, very, very low view of social outcasts.
Right.
Contagious and 4 short steps we can erase this. Step 1, slit my throat. Step 2, blame my blood. Step 3, cover me in dirty sheets and run laughing out of the house. Step 4, stop off at Edgebrook Creek and rinse your crimson hands. You took me hostage, you made your demands. I couldn't meet him, so you cut off my fingers one by one.
To be fair, I think she cut off more than your fingers, dude.
Right. Alright. Step 1, slit my throat. Step 2, play my blood. Step 3, cover me in dirty sheets and run laughing out of the house.
I mean, if you're gonna do it, sounds like the way to do it. Got it?
It says this is the chorus: to save himself from the loneliness and rejection whilst also allowing him contact with the nameless female he desires, that she kills him and offers her advice on the steps to do so. On the steps to take to derive most pleasure and then get away with it. And then the next little section, step 4, stop off at Edgebrook Creek and rinse your crimson hands. You took me hostage and made your demands. I couldn't meet them, so you cut off my fingers one by one. The start of this section shows he has a desire for the woman to avoid punishment for killing him, since he wanted it to happen. He felt like a prisoner to the thoughts and obsession over the woman and could never be what she would need him to be in order to be a suitable prospective mate, and therefore he hypothesizes about encouraging her to indulge in his suicidal murderous fantasy.
Right.
So he's like, look, I'm never going to be able to be with you.
But you can fulfill my murderous fantasy.
Go ahead and kill me.
Because if I were to go around on a killing spree, I would definitely be playing in the blood of my victims and laughing. Is pretty much what he's saying.
Right.
Okay.
Possibly.
Really? Because that's a pretty exacting plan for somebody who hasn't thought of it. Either that or he's one of those dudes that would be on that
well,
site
I think
cannibalism.
you misunderstood the annotation, though. It's his suicidal murderous fantasy. It's not what he wants to do.
Yeah, but
he wants to commit suicide through her murdering him.
But then we get into the kinks like that cannibalism site where people apply because they want to be eaten, and then there are the people that want to eat. It's,
True.
It's still a fantasy that he has thought through enough that he takes satisfaction at the thought of her dancing around in his blood, basically.
That's because if that's the only way you can have an interaction with her.
Right. But like I said, it's still a pretty precise fantasy.
I come up with precise fantasy on a whim.
Right.
But
he's her willing sacrifice is basically what he's saying.
Right.
Yeah.
I would like to make a note. The thing I'm having the most issues with this song, I understand it is not hip-hop.
Right.
And I understand it is not always a necessity in music, but it drives me nuts when it doesn't happen. I need what you're saying to rhyme. It is a song.
It's a story. No, not all songs rhyme.
That would be like me
song.
opening up Stephen King's It
Right.
and trying to recite it like a musical masterpiece. No.
We're talking look, poetry doesn't all rhyme. It depends on what type of poetry you're
And I hate that poetry too.
Wow, you're such a fucking elitist, aren't you?
No! I just
Holy
need
cow.
shit to rhyme. It's music. It's poetry.
You like Edgar Allan Poe. A lot of his poetry doesn't rhyme.
Most of it does, but it's extended stanzas. This isn't even extended stanzas.
And you pick a book that doesn't have endings of chapters either.
It's a fantastic book, though.
It really is, but for all of
That's
the
why I
books
finished
that
it so quick, because I have to end on a
because
chapter.
you can't put it down because there's no yes, I know. It's like the sentence cuts in half and then
He's an asshole for that.
He is,
Smart one,
but
though. It got
not
him to read the whole
everything has
book.
to rhyme, baby. That's childhood.
Nah, fuck that.
One by one,
I say that, and the next one actually rhymes.
I really like
punch him
the
in the
music
face.
that's playing behind. Now, normally, and this is where I thought you were going to go with it, because I was paying attention to the story, not the rhyming.
I'm doing both.
That it hasn't changed much, right? And normally, I like the instrumental beat, whatever, to change. But it really feels like it's threading the tension and almost the OCD of this person.
Right.
Like, because you can tell this person is obsessive. I mean, that's part of what this is about. So it feels like that sort of panicky feeling that you get when you've got to do something. You've got to move, you've got to clean, whatever your obsession is.
Right.
Also, because I brought it up, the whole cannibalism kink thing, part of what they talk about, whether it's, well, the actual tribal use of cannibalism or not, is it's to keep the person with you.
Right.
So in this case, as a willing sacrifice, he is tying himself to this person forever, willingly,
Right.
which is said to be more powerful than unwilling. I mean, like, it depends on what you're talking about and this, that, and the other, but that's obsession right there.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm like a broken record. I've got a needle scratching me. It injects the poisons of alcohol IV. I don't blame you for walking away. I'd do the same if I saw me. I swear it's not contagious. Swear to God it's not contagious. Step one, slit my throat. Step two, bleed my blood. Step three, cover me in dirty sheets and run laughing out of the house. Step four, stop at Lake Michigan and rinse your crimson hands. You took me hostage, you made your demands. I couldn't meet him, so you cut off my fingers one by one.
All right. I'm like a broken record. I've got a needle scratching me. It injects the poisons of alcohol IV.
Obsession. It's the OCD in him.
Right. The singer's stuck in a loop of addiction, repeating the same steps, and is definitely an alcoholic. The needle may just be a reference to the record player, but it also is likely a pointer towards possible dependence with heroin as well.
I don't necessarily think... I mean, like, I do think it's a metaphor there, because obviously he's using it for both, record player and the IV. But I really think that the whole thing is talking about addiction, and she is the addiction. This whole obsession is the addiction,
Or maybe he's drunk off of her love.
Maybe she doesn't love him, but
Or his love for her.
Yeah, maybe. But again, like, he's thought this through enough to have a 4-step plan, right? So he's saying, like, he can't not think about this. Like, it's a compulsion, and in and of itself an addiction. So I don't necessarily agree that he has to be an actual substance addict. It's quite possible, because when you get to this level of obsession, a lot of times it comes with trying to make it go away. But I would take that whole stanza as more of like the metaphor for his compulsion towards her.
I do like that when he goes into the chorus for step 4, he changes up
Location.
the lyric and changes up the location. So now it's Lake Michigan.
I wonder what the other place, like the relevance of the Edgebrook Creek or something, versus Lake Michigan.
You took me hostage and made your demands. I couldn't meet them, so you cut off my fingers one by one. Alkaline Trio occasionally uses lines for their dramatic impact or phonology at the expense of their meaning. This is one example where the imagery of cutting off a victim's fingers one by one is the driving part of the sentiment they are expressing, while ignoring that it makes no logical sense to take a hostage and then make your demands on the hostage, instead of on law enforcement or some other third party. The protagonist wouldn't be a hostage if this scenario was just a, or if in this scenario was just a kidnappee. This could be fixed by changing the line to they couldn't meet them.
No. I don't know. I feel like that annotation is a little confusing because
I feel like whoever did the annotation for this
was
misunderstood
too
a
literal.
lot.
I feel like because you took me hostage. Well, that's his obsession with her. Like, so you can take a hostage and make demands on them, and it doesn't have to be a literal kidnapping hostage.
Right.
And he couldn't meet them just because of who he is. Like, he's a social outcast. He can't be what she wants. And even if she didn't actually speak out those demands, he is interpreting for her what she needs in a mate and therefore ostracizing himself in this case.
Right.
And the whole cut off my fingers would be like a stab to the heart, knowing that he is not what she deserves. And so, yeah, you do cut off fingers in order to send them back to the family or whatever. But I think here that's a turn of phrase, but it's also like trophy keeping, trinket keeping. It's kind of, it goes along with her playing in his blood. It's something that he wishes that she would do because it would mean that she saw enough in him that even once he was dead, she would want to keep body parts. Or
could also be a metaphor for the longing, but not being able to touch her.
Yeah, I mean, but again, they're playing into the whole hostage demands, blah, 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 the ransom, the fingers, but I think whoever annotated it took that far too literally and has never heard anyone say, like, my lady, you have taken my heart hostage, right, in a cheesy, horrible romance, which unfortunately I have. it is unfortunate. I don't like those movies.
Right.
Until they start taking fingers. I mean, that would make it better.
Whatever. There's one movie that they do stuff like that, and you love the movie.
Which one?
Robin Hood Men in Tights.
Yeah, but they're also very stabby. It's kind of like Princess Bride. They're very stabby.
Lend me your ears.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyways.
Plus, Carrie always looks damn good in tights.
This could be love. Love for fire. This could be love. Love for fire. This could be love for fire. Forevermore. Step one, slit my throat. Step two, play in my blood. Step three, cover me in dirty sheets and run laughing out of the house. Step four, stop at Berkeley Marina. Rinse your crimson hands. You took me hostage and made your demands. I couldn't meet them, so you cut off my fingers one by one. One by one.
Huh. Now I'm really interested in what those watery places have specifically for Alkaline Trio.
Right.
Berkeley Marina, Lake Michigan, and Edgebrook Creek, I think, are the... But, so, interesting that none of the rest of this is annotated, because the breakdown when they're talking about this could be love for fire. Like, in the world of elements and metaphors, fire is obsession. It's combustible. It's you're gonna get burned by touching it, and passion and all of those things that we use it for that have to do with love. But it is not normally stable.
Right.
And he's burning inside just even thinking about this. He is basically just about to self-destruct with his obsession. And I just think it's interesting that they chose fire, because honestly, they didn't need to, but they did.
Right.
In a song about complete and utter obsession, to the point that you would play a willing victim just so that you had your obsession at your final moments and you didn't have to ever live without them. You know?
Right.
When I saw the title was This Could Be Love, by the way, there's that stupid song in the animated Sleeping Beauty. This could be love, na 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 na. That's what I was, So I'm glad it wasn't that. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Oh, there is an annotation, by the way. About.
It's in the about section.
Dear God.
This is a long about, y'all. Okay.
All right. Genius says, This Could Be Love is the opening track on Alkaline Trio's fourth full-length LP, 2003's Good Morning. It is sung from the perspective of a sexually submissive person with an all-consuming fixation on masochism, someone who has conflated sex and violence to an alarming degree. I read these lyrics as an extended fantasy, a dialogue taking place in the narrator's self-described twisted little brain, rather than a monologue that's being spoken aloud to the object of his affection. The song initially comes across as a sort of love song, albeit an exceedingly dark one. However, it eventually becomes clear that the narrator does not have any sort of close relationship with the woman being addressed here, as he admits that he doesn't even know her name. With the narrator's almost total unfamiliarity with this woman is revealed, we realize that this song is not about a relationship gone south, but about a stalker who's having a horrendously violent fantasies about a stranger. The twist, however, is that he feels no inclination to commit violent acts against her. On the contrary, he wants her to torture, murder, and dismember him. Mm-hmm. I do believe, based on the reoccurring line, "I don't blame you for walking away," that the narrator may have attempted to approach this woman once and she ignored him. This is one aspect that I find fascinating and insightful about the song, rather than coming across as uninspired attempt to shock the listener. It's an investigation of the psychological makeup of potentially dangerous men like the narrator. It suggests that the humiliation of his bumbling, failed attempt to start a conversation with a woman in whom he was interested, when combined with whatever biological and circumstantial difficulties he faces on a daily basis, may be a significant factor in the aberrant behavior of such people, i.e. those
Aberrant? Is that what it was?
Probably.
Okay.
I.e. those who suffer from uncontrollable thoughts about violent sex acts. However, it is important to remember that ultimately he doesn't want this woman to kill and dismember him for some altruistic reason, wanting to help both her and the rest of the world's women of a menace such as himself. He is always, first and foremost, attempting to fulfill his desires. He wants this specific woman, someone with whom he has no connection or personal history, to murder him because of the immense thrill he will get from it. His self-loathing is such a strong feature of his personality that Skiba saw fit to make it the focus of the song's chorus, comprised of step-by-step instructions meant to help this woman erase this abominable behavior. Step 1, slit my throat. Step 2, play my blood, etc. This guy is the epitome of the unreliable narrator, a condition of perpetual uncertainty which can be seen even in the song's uber-ironic title. This Could Be Love ends up being about a stalker with a grotesque fetish and some stomach-turning desires, and the true meaning of the title is revealed in the last few lines of the song. The idea that the desires described in the song could be love is suggested, but is then immediately followed by the phrase, love for fire. That is to say, this is not love in any true sense of the word. It is love for pain, for suffering, and for misery. It is the opposite of love. There is no moralizing in this song, no solutions presented or lessons learned by the song's conclusion. Of course, Skiba is not suggesting that, due to the fact that some people develop these troubling impulses without consenting to them or possessing any measure of control over them, we should just accept the harassment, stalking, and abuse of women as an inevitability. But neither is he portraying this obviously tortured man as a two-dimensional villain. He is both pitiable in a sympathetic way and so utterly revolting.
Now, why do I feel like the guy that wrote the About section was not the same person who annotated? Because I feel like the guy that wrote this About section understood the homework, and the other guy was a little too literal.
Right.
I agree. And I will go as far as to say this type of character would be like a Norman Bates character.
Okay.
Who is, to everybody that he speaks to, socially awkward and submissive. It's only his alter, that is his mother, that has the kahunas and it causes the psychosis and everything. And while this specific song doesn't have an ending to this story in it, because we're inside the head of the obsessed person, that switch can go off at any moment. Right. Like, at this moment, he's not violent towards this woman, but if he builds up this fantasy enough and really wants it to come to fruition, he's going to start implementing reasons for her to act violent towards him, right? And even if she calls the cops or doesn't comply or whatever, that frustration and rage is going to build, because again, this has nothing to do with her feelings, because he doesn't talk to her, he doesn't know her. It has all to do with how he's feeling about the subject, which, you see enough psychological interviews with these people that become murderers, serial killers, whatever, and a lot of them have a very deep self-loathing and also not a very high self-esteem to boot. So, and a lot of them were more submissive in just their general everyday life. So at any moment, it could go from I'm your willing victim to I obviously already have violent fantasies and you pissed me off.
Right.
So, yeah.
All right. So, as stated before, this is number 28 on this list. Let me explain to you why Kerrang!
Okay.
Has it on here. While many other popular punk bands of the time were singing songs about farting and penises, the always cut above Alkaline trio cast their gaze on darker matters.
Which is why I like them.
This Could Be Love is a tale of murder, the twist in which lies in the fact that it is told from the victim's point of view.
That's bullshit.
It's grisly stuff too, with soiled beds, scenes of torture, delirious joy at acts of violence, and the arresting image of a crazed lover washing blood from her hands in the waters of Lake Michigan. As audio nasties go, this is a superior offering.
Very terrible misinterpretation there. Like, I don't disagree that it belongs on the list, but...
Well, first of all, I think it is funny how three completely different people
right
all came up with completely different ideas of what this song was about.
The annotated, the about section in this. Yeah.
I would normally say that's how you know you've made a good song.
Right.
But in this situation, I feel like everybody's just got a part of it, but not getting the full understanding.
Right.
I definitely think the about section was the closest.
Right.
And
maybe, the about section was already 4 times longer than their normal about section, and they did point out that Skiba managed to make this person not 2-dimensional.
Right.
And so it would be hard to break down the psychosis that this track is actually talking about. Yeah.
Right. Here's the thing. Again, I won't say again, this is kind of a different one. I am on the fence on whether or not this song belongs on the list. I say on the fence because is the guy crazy?
You don't... Well...
Maybe.
Are we debating the word crazy at this point? Because I would say no.
Because I don't know how... It doesn't come off as evil to me.
Okay.
It comes off as unstable.
Right. This is where it's funny, right? Because yesterday, when we were recording, you said what would be evil to you is if somebody wrote a pre-confession track and then went out and did it.
But
now,
then I would also still need him to now go out and murder somebody.
Right, well, we don't know what happened. So I think it's funny because this is, to all intents and purposes, what could be considered a pre-confession track. Now, like I said...
It would.
At any
if the
moment.
lead singer went out and murdered somebody.
Well, not him, but the person he's singing about. Right?
Right. This wouldn't even be a pre-confession. This would be like
This would be the journal entry that happened before he snapped.
Or before he got murdered.
Well, no, I would think
By
that
the woman
this
of
type
his
of
desires.
I would think that this person would be the person that none of his plans go accordingly, and he snaps, and that's when he becomes violent.
I know whose position he's writing this song from. This is, by the way, half joking, half it could be true. The lady
Could be love.
that was going around in England killing people, that had the tattoo on her face.
Oh, the star.
It could be one
starts
of her
with a
guys
J.
that was helping her out with stuff, and like he's doing it
God.
for her affection, but she doesn't
Joanne,
see. And then she turns around and kills him. I'm just saying.
D. It starts with a D. Joanne something. She killed like 3 guys just in a spree. She had killed a couple more
Right.
before, I think.
She like stabbed somebody on the sidewalk,
And she just did it for shits and giggles.
and then
honestly.
laughed at the when being booked.
Yeah, she was like, could be worse. We're like, you're here on murder charges, lady. Dempsey.
That was half joking, by the way.
That's her last name, Dempsey.
But that's what I now think of.
I do think it's interesting that Quran went that way in terms of their interpretation. That this is like a Stockholm syndromed, tortured person that is now thinking that they're in love, and it's not all a fantasy still at the point of the song.
Right.
Which, I don't know where they got that interpretation. It's an interesting one, but I don't feel like the song is saying that whatsoever.
Right.
I can understand why this made the evil list, even if they had interpreted it the same way as the about section, because again, it is a violent, obsessive expelling of intent.
I mean, it definitely deserves to be on this list more than most of the other songs I've heard.
I agree with you in terms of like, I don't know if it's like, I don't consider it evil. I honestly, it's a very interesting psychological breakdown to me that Skiba, took this upon himself to put himself in the shoes of somebody who felt this way, a stalker, So in terms of like songs that have evil intent in them, sure. Even not taking Quran's interpretation, because I think it's wrong. But yeah, I'm with you. I don't particularly think it's like an evil song. I actually quite enjoyed it.
I enjoyed the song for the most part. Could totally use a little bit more rhyming, but as songs go from Alkaline Trio, because I'm not the biggest Alkaline Trio fan. It was enjoyable. I still don't think it's going to make the spooky playlist.
Right. I mean, I don't know. I kind of feel like, well, it would make mine to the degree that I feel like it's sort of along the lines of Norman Bates. I do think that it's got that vibe, and we put Skinned on our list. So kind of a true crime psychology type thing.
Yeah, I mean, I can put it on the list.
That's up to you, babe.
It's our list.
Yeah.
My list.
We're allowed to disagree and also debate what we consider. I just feel like if we agree that stuff like Skinned makes the list, when that's not like Halloween spooky stuff, but more true crime, then stuff like this that is palatable, because let's face it, some of the other stuff just was not palatable.
Right.
Should. Anyway.
Alright, so if you guys liked the video, slash that like button, subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, comment down below what did you think of Alkaline Trio with This Could Be Love. Also comment down below if there's anything else you guys want to see reacted to. Check the description below for all things.
Every time that comes on, you're going to be pissed off afterwards.
I am.
I can just see that. Oh, it doesn't rhyme. I don't want it on the list. Pout going on behind the mask.
No, I will still take this over having, which we do have, like 2 to 3 versions of songs.
Oh, my poor baby.
That drives me just as nuts.
Push our buttons. Do all the things. He's on Twitter.
Very true. All right, we love you guys. Thank you all for watching. Cannot wait to see you depraved people later. Bye.